Shabbat Shalom. After spending the month of July in the city of Jerusalem, it's a pleasure once again to be back here at Shaare, once again to be preparing Divrei Torah to send out online to reach our congregation. Among the central themes of the entire Torah is the theme of Brit, the Hebrew word for covenant. God enters a covenant, an agreement with Noah and through Noah with all of humanity after the flood. God enters a separate covenant with Abraham, in which God promises Abraham numerous descendants who will become a great nation, a nation which in turn will become a blessing for all humanity. That covenant with Abraham is largely unilateral, one-sided. It is God who takes upon God's self significant obligations. Abraham's initial obligation seems to be merely trusting God against all possible odds in order to fulfill his obligations. God enters a bilateral covenant with Abraham's descendants at Mount Sinai after the exodus from Egypt. God promises to make the Israelites his Am Sigula, his treasured possession, from among all the nations, provided that the Israelites listen to God's voice and obey his commandments. This week's Torah portion, Parshat Tavo, describes a renewal of the covenant 40 years after the Exodus, just days before the death of Moses, and before the Israelites will finally enter the land of Canaan under the leadership of Joshua. The text says, Et Hashem he'amarta hayom liyot lecha le'Elohim, lalechet bidrachav, lishmor chukav u'mitzvotav u'mishpatav, v'lishmoa bekolo. והשם האמירך היום להיות לו לעם סגולה, כאשר דיבר לך, ולשמור מצוותיו. You have affirmed this day that the Lord is your God, to walk in his paths, to keep his laws and commandments and statutes, and to listen to his voice. The Lord has affirmed today that you are his treasured nation, just as he once promised. Without entering into the content of the covenant, it's very clear from the language in this week's parsha that we are dealing with something that is mutual. Israel, after 40 years in the wilderness, affirms that the Lord is their God, and the Lord affirms his promise that Israel is now his treasured nation, just as he once did at Sinai. Well, the English text is clear enough. The Hebrew is somewhat less so. Rashi, that medieval commentator of the 10th century, notes that the Hebrew verb he'emircha has no parallel in the Hebrew Bible, by which it can be clearly understood. Rashi suggests that the verb he'emircha means to separate and to set apart. For Rashi, the text means that we segregated and set aside the Lord from all the other competing and foreign gods. And God, in turn, set us aside and segregated us from all the other nations in the world. Rashi contends that the distinctive feature of this covenant renewal, before our ancestors entered into the land of Israel, is not only its bilateral nature, but a mutual decision on behalf of God and Israel to set each other up as unique, distinct, and exclusive from all other nations and deities, respectively. At Sinai, Although God imposed obligations upon the Israelites, all that was expected of Israel was to listen to God's voice and to obey His laws and commandments. Now Israel was expected to make an active decision, to make an affirmation that alone among all the deities worshipped in the world, the Lord was their exclusive God. And entering into the land of Canaan, and changed the playbook in a fundamental fashion. In the wilderness, Israel was alone with God. There was no competition. It was sufficient simply to listen to God and obey His commandments. But in the land of Canaan, the Israelites would not be alone. There would be other nations who worshipped other deities. Now Israel was confronted with a choice to affirm their exclusive loyalty to God or not. Only through such an affirmation do we enhance God's reputation in the world. Otherwise, we default on our exclusive role as an Am Segula, God's treasured people, and we fail to live up to what God expects of us in declaring that we are indeed His Am Segula. Amen.